And now to greet you and I is that much-awaited segment of the Capitol Forum, that's Chit Chat with MANOJ. The host here is a theater artist who is also the CEO of Caesar Productions, Mr. Manoj Singh. On his presentation, Mr. Singh always has some valuable take-home message. His features include all facets of life. Aaj yahan to kal wahan. I like that. Well, this week he proposes to point out major challenges of being raised in America. To join him in this discussion are Dr. Munish, Mehra and Dr. Amita Jha. Let's join them.
Welcome to Chit Chat. I'm Manoj Singh. Hello, Namaste, Adab. Today we have a very important topic. I think it relates to all of us. Challenges of bringing children in America. And joining me for this discussion today are Dr. Amita Jha, welcome, a practicing psychiatrist. On my left, Munish Mehra, a CEO of Quantum Change Group. We all have children. What generally I have seen that Indian parents here in America are very protective, continue to provide financial support almost until they graduate from college. Physical activity in general is lacking, whether it's sports or even earning money via racking leaves or mowing a lawn. And it seems like, to me, that maybe they're a little bit sloppy or physical when it comes to physical activity. I don't know what the right answer is. We put a lot of emphasis on education, and in that process, maybe we seem to forget about some other important characteristics or elements which our kids should learn about. So the first question to Dr. Amita Jha is parenting different here in US than the way we would have brought up our kids in India?
I think parenting is difficult no matter where you do it, across cultures, across countries. Parenting is a difficult process because it's a process of not only growing up and bringing up a child, but also growth of yourself as an adult, as a parent. So on top of that, when we make the geographical dislocation and come back as immigrants in a different place, I think we don't have the cultural background of bringing up our children in a different background. So we all come in with a set of beliefs, we have our backgrounds, how we've grown up, and we sort of have ideas of what we want our children to be. However, we don't know what the milieu is where we are putting our children in. And children have to cope with a very different environment here. So yes, but it's a given that because we are immigrants in this country, that it is different for us to bring up children here than it would be in India, because in India or anywhere else, we would know what it is about. And here we don't know what it is about.
Yeah, I was reading on some articles, and assimilation is, I think, across for similar to all immigrants, even kids coming from Europe or Africa. The next question to Munish is, is our parenting different from our American counterparts?
So, Manoj, immigrants by nature have left their countries, their families, and moved to a different region, and there's a desire to succeed, and in essence, a greater expectation of their children. So I think as immigrants, whether we're immigrants from India or from Europe or from any other country, we put a lot of emphasis on academic excellence, on hard work, and on succeeding, because that's what brought us to this country. We wanted something different, we wanted something better, and we were prepared to give up to gain something and have a chance of creating a better life for our children. So in that sense, I do think we have different expectations, focusing on academic success. We must also realize, I think, as you said, Amita, that we need to also create well-rounded individuals. We need to also encourage them to take part in physical activities, other cultural activities, be assimilated more in society, be more well-rounded. And academic excellence is only one component of being a broader, more successful individual in a new country.
Yeah, my younger brother, his kids, were both of them were actually, I was told, the first Indian kids to be in the high school basketball team, which is interesting. And I think the credit goes mostly to my brother, who took a deep interest in it. And I think he himself, back in India when he was in engineering college, played cricket. He was on the cricket team. He was on the table tennis team. So I think that helped him even to get into colleges, good colleges. So, and another thing I see when we are trying to discipline our kids or about independence, we always have this fear of losing our kids. I don't maybe understand that, and Amita can help us understand what that means. We are always, it seems like we have a fear if we are strict with them. So what is this about fear about losing kids?
So I think as you move from, because of being immigrants, being away from your own society and your own families and friends and all of that, I think there is a fear of giving independence to children, because I think as parents we don't really fully fathom what's out there for them. And we get too insular in ourselves and not allow them to experience the world fully just because of our own fears. Because the children actually are okay outside. So we as parents are always struggling with this whole idea of giving independence to children, because we deeply believe somehow out there the world is so bad, and especially being in America or a different place where there is a cultural clash, where you fear that your children will become too American or will absorb values that don't meet your expectations or you don't want. And I think there is a belief that somehow if kids gain more of American values, that they will move away from you. And I think this is a sort of belief in various immigrant communities that the individualism that's promoted in America as a culture is, although good for success as a professional, is not really good for their personal lives. And so there's a constant struggle of how to keep kids under your control somehow, but yet be able to have them achieve success outside in the world. And I'll give an example. Just yesterday I saw this person, and it was very interesting because she said when she was 6 years old, she couldn't understand what her parental expectations were, because it was clear that the parents expected her to become a lawyer and do very well in America and accomplish and maybe be the Supreme Court lawyer, and they talked about it. However, they really did not want her to go anywhere outside. She couldn't have friends. All through her growing up, the girl could never date, she couldn't have American friends, she couldn't bring kids over the home. So she didn't know how they thought about this whole idea of this very accomplished person out there in an American society without really ever getting to know her society. So this conflict of you want your child to have, you imagine that independence, only certain amount of independence is needed for children, and they should be satisfied with it and ask for no more. And that's not possible.
Correct, yeah. So to both of you, is there such thing as an ideal kid or a children, or it's a very heavy question, and it, of course, depends on the circumstance, and every kid is different.
So I don't think there's anything like an ideal child. I think parents having expectations of having an ideal child are searching for a unicorn. It doesn't exist. I think as long as your child is going to be independent, being able to be a member of society, to function within the society they live in, they're happy, whether they want to how they want to contribute, how they want to be part of the society is up to them. We know what we don't want our kids to do. We don't want our kids to do anything illegal. We don't want our kids to be in trouble with drugs or with any other activities that would harm them physically or that would be illegal. So I think as long as they're not going to any of those and they're happy with what they're doing, and that's, I think, adequate.
No, I think the idea of an ideal kid is kind of universal. Everybody across cultures would want the same for their children. Everybody wants success, everybody wants them to be happy, but we need to be careful because that's just an ideal, it's an idea. The real process of people growing up and becoming somebody is very difficult and different.
Correct.
And that has, because it'll give you variation of what people are, where people find happiness or not, and where the cultural conflict, how they absorb even the cultural conflict, coming from Indian parents, growing up in America.
Correct.
Should change the parents also. There should be an ideal parent that should change from what ideal parent is in India versus what an ideal parent is in America.
Yep. I mean, sometimes when one question always comes to my mind, and especially for our community, I think we emphasize a lot on education. And since we are in theater and some art, how boring the world would be if everyone was a doctor and engineer. I think we have a lot of diversity out there. We should let them choose what they want, pursue their passion. To both of you and even me, if we look back, have you had done anything differently in your parenting?
So from my perspective, I think, we learned things later on. When you're being a parent, I think, like you said, nobody teaches you how to be a parent. You kind of learn by watching your parents. But times change. We're a different generation. The social norms have changed. So I think the number one thing I would do was learn to be more of a parent, to try to better understand my children, to better understand boundaries. I think looking back, there were times where maybe we were too strict and we shouldn't have been, or other times we were too liberal when we should have been more strict. So I think being a parent is about finding those boundaries and adhering to them and communicating, understanding the child's perspective, understand where they're coming from, and then beginning to find ways to really communicate. I think that's what I would have done differently.
So one of the last questions I would ask is as parents, do we need to learn how to communicate, and is there some help out there? I think Indian parents are not good at seeking help.
I think that's largely true because people think they know everything, but I think Indian parents really need to think about what it is to be growing up in a school environment here, for example, as a brown child, what it is to face different cultures, their festivals, how to identify with Christmas or Thanksgiving versus their own festivals, and how that identity is formed for a child, because child is not just in your house, the child is out there 10 hours a day, mingling with different cultures. So I think there's a lot of learning that Indian parents should do or try and learn more about and adjust.
Thank you, both of you. We only had few minutes. Like I said, this is a very important issue. Please take this discussion onto your dining table. Talk to your children, friends, relatives. That is it for today. Please provide us feedback. Please also let us know what we should discuss on our next show. Goodbye, all the best, and see you on the next show.